So Season 2 of The Last of Us wrapped up this past weekend, and much like Season 1, it was a pretty well executed show on a technical level. Again, the CGI for making Seattle look like a post-apocalyptic wasteland was believable. The cinematography of Wyoming when Ellie and Dina were leaving was awesome. We got great performances from the actors that played Tommy, Joel, and Dina, and even Jesse. And the action sequence in Jackson, Wyoming was pretty sick. But you know what? The show as a whole, it's really frustrating because for every one good thing, there are two dumb things or things I don't like. Like, why did the infected run around Tommy? He is shooting a gun and yelling. What the hell, dude? There's a lot of things that were changed or altered from the game to the TV show adaptation, and honestly, some of it is worse off than it was before. With that, I'm gonna go over why I think this show isn't that great. This is your spoiler warning if it wasn't already apparent. And now I'm gonna start with the elephant in the room, Joel's death. Whoo boy, this is a topic of contention. When Joel died in the game, it was really poorly received, with a bunch of people saying that it was predictable or that they shouldn't have killed him in the first place, that he's the lifeline of the story, and these are true. Of course, this show being an adaptation of the game made a couple changes here and there to make Joel's death fit a little bit more with the characters involved. Like, for example, they made Abby's friends apprehensive about killing Joel, to the point where Owen even suggests they tell Abby that this isn't a good idea and that they should leave. On top of that, they're actually more sympathetic to anyone who isn't Joel, because in the game, they knocked the shit out of Tommy, but in the show, they gently put Dina to sleep. The show did this to make them not come off as total monsters, except it's hard to take them as sympathetic people because the simple fact that they're even there, the fact that they made the journey across states, shows the audience how hell-bent they are in ending Joel. It's hard to buy these people as sympathetic when they literally go a great distance to find someone and make sure he dies. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that we liked Abby and her friends. Let's say that we buy them as sympathetic people and what they're doing is justified, considering what Joel did. The fact of the matter is, Joel still ends up dead. This is the bigger point of contention because it has massive repercussions to the entire story and also to Ellie. And if you want me to be completely honest, I'm actually fine with Joel dying. But there's still a problem. My problem here is that Joel died too early. The changes the show made didn't really make much of a difference because the lifeline of the story is still gone. For the rest of the season, for the rest of the story, we will not see that lifeline anymore, especially since it happened early on. If it happened later, I don't think people would be as upset about it. The entirety of The Last of Us was founded on the dynamic between Joel and Ellie. And when one of them is taken out of the equation, especially so soon, the whole thing comes apart. The thing is though, a story without Joel can work, except the way the narrative was written didn't do that at all. I'll talk more about that in a bit, but first, what about Joel's death on its own? Well, I, like most people, was sent into a state of despair when it happened, and that's the point. You're supposed to be sad about it. Joel isn't a good person. He's trying to be. But you can't discount the countless people he's killed, and you can't discount the fact that he sold away humanity for the selfish reason of keeping Ellie alive. We understand why he did it, but that doesn't make him a good person. In Season 2, he does try to be a better person by admitting to Ellie what he did and that he lied, but for everything he's done, he can't keep getting away with it, and thus his character needs to be stopped. Now, the thing that had some people upset, and that's the key word here, upset, not sad. The thing that had people upset is the fact that Joel's death was predictable, and most importantly of all, it left a massive void in the entire story. Like I said, he's a bad person, and he's done terrible things, so his comeuppance was always hovering above his head. But the biggest thing here is that this still takes away the foundation of the story, which is Joel and Ellie's dynamic. Again, I don't hate that Joel died. I hate that he died so soon, because without Joel, Ellie has no one to bounce off of. Her no longer having the dynamic with Joel actually would have been fine if the show gave us people to attach ourselves to, characters that are likable. The only candidates for this are Dina, Jesse, and Tommy. But like, we don't really know anything about Dina or Jesse. With Joel, we know that he was a contractor who dreamed of being a musician who had a daughter that tragically passed away. With Ellie, we know that she was born in a quarantine zone and was excited to see the world, even if it was a little misguided due to the lurking dangers she's never seen or heard before. Plus, she likes space, silly puns, and nerdy comic books. What do we know about Dina? She helps the settlement in Jackson, Wyoming, and she's good at it? What do we know about Jesse? He helps the settlement in Jackson, Wyoming, and he's good at it? Yeah, on the surface they're pretty cool characters, but we don't really know anything about them. Tommy is the closest thing to a character that we can attach ourselves to, but even then, he's only relegated to doing what's best for Jackson, or being away trying to secure escape routes to bring Ellie and Dina back. He isn't really directly involved in Ellie's story. He's more of a supporting character than a main piece of the story. And even then, Tommy is only one likable character aside from Ellie. That's such a small pool to pick from. So with no one to fill this huge void left by Joel's death, we feel such a disconnect with the narrative because the lifeline is gone. Like it or not, The Last of Us is about Joel and Ellie. That's how the story unfolded in season 1, so if you're gonna take a huge piece of that away in season 2 and beyond, the show better be prepared to fill that giant, gaping dark void because one of the two pillars holding up the whole narrative is gone, and now the entire thing is teetering on falling over. Ellie shouldn't have to carry the whole thing. Give us more pillars to hold up the narrative. But the show didn't do that. This was a problem in the game, and it's the same thing in the show. They changed nothing about this. They made changes in other places, just like how they changed Abby's friends to be more apprehensive about finding Joel to try and make them more believable and sympathetic. Why not make some changes to Jesse and Dina? Actually, not even changes. How about some additions? Why not give them things to do that aren't related to helping the settlement? There's only 7 episodes in this season. Why not fit another episode in to flesh them out and make them more likable? You could even use that episode to give us stuff with Abby's friends so that we can at least start to care about them. Because when Ellie beats up Nora, does the show really expect me to feel bad about her? I don't fucking care. If anything, I want Ellie to do it because Nora was involved in Joel's death. But the show wanting me to feel bad about Abby's friends because they were apprehensive and sympathetic toward Dina once, it just doesn't work. What Ellie is doing is supposed to be wrong. Revenge is a dark path, but what she's doing kind of feels justified because her opposition hasn't been humanized enough. I honestly don't think the changes the show made were enough to save the mixed bag of a story we got. And that brings me to my next point, the changes themselves. Now that we talked about Joel's death, let's talk about why some changes from the game to the TV show just don't work. And one that sticks out to me a lot is the fact that they combined the confession by Joel in Salt Lake City with the porch scene of Ellie saying she'd like to try to forgive him. I was not a fan of this change, which sucks because the porch scene is actually really good, but the implications and logic surrounding it start to bog it down the more you think about it. Even then, while this scene was pretty impactful, I feel like it would have hit harder if Joel confessing his actions came sooner, and then the porch scene came later, just like in the game. The reason why is because having such a big revelation being given, especially with how angry Ellie is, and then her saying she wants to try and forgive him feels kind of rushed. She's had no time to be angry about it. And you can say, oh, she has been angry about it by being rebellious, smoking spicy grass, and eventually asking to sleep in the garage. But like, does she not trust him? What the hell is up with that? Sure, you can have your doubts, you can ask questions. She even prepared a list of questions for him so she can ask about what happened in Salt Lake City. Being hesitant is fine. It's understandable. But to already be so mad about something you don't know for sure just doesn't make sense in this context. Like, you had this doubt and you're so sure about it, but when does the resentment start? Ellie just kind of starts rebelling out of nowhere. Why not sooner? We had that scene with the psychologist's husband, Eugene, where Ellie got even more mad after the way Joel handled it. But she was actually already angry and full of resentment before that took place. It's kind of crazy that the game did this better than the show, because in the game, Ellie found out way sooner and proceeded to lash out at him, which is understandable, and as time passes, Ellie still hates what Joel did. But she also slowly starts to remember that she loves him as her father figure. A year or so passes, then we get the porch scene where Ellie has had time to be angry, she's had time to process what Joel did, she's had time to at least try to understand why he did what he did. And that's when she says she's willing to try and forgive him. She acknowledges that she might not be able to, considering the implications on the whole of humanity, but he's still like a father to her, and she recognizes that too. In the show, on the other hand, Joel tells her what he did, and she has no time to process the anger she feels or the actions he committed. She says right away that she'll try to forgive him, and that feels kinda rushed. And that's because of the change made in the show to combine Joel's confession with the porch scene. We, the audience, aren't given time to see or feel her processing these intense emotions against Joel. She just goes right into moving forward, and so of course we do too. Another change I didn't like is the fact that Ellie puts her arm in the way of the infected's mouth instead of shooting at it. Where's her gun? She's running through the subway without it in her hand. We didn't see her run out of ammo or anything like that. It seems really unnecessary, except that it kinda was, considering Dina has to find out that Ellie is immune somehow. Even though in the game, Ellie's mask breaks while the spores are around, which indicates to Dina that she's immune. Why did they change that? That's so random and unnecessary. Even outside of changes from game to TV show, there were other things that I didn't like the scars showing up. They were one of my least favorite things about the game because they were just a generic cult and they feel the same way here. I know they're just being set up for next season, but they get just enough screen time to where the show has to start justifying the amount they get in order for us to care. And I just don't. There's even a scene where Ellie sails a boat, then gets captured by the scars onto an island, and then literally the next minute, she's sailing on a boat again. What the hell, dude? Oh, and don't get me started on the fact that they ended the season with a cliffhanger. We're still doing cliffhangers in 2025? Ain't no way, dude. And oh my word, why is Ellie the way she is in season 2? Why did they make her dumb? There was the scene in the beginning where Dina kind of came in and said, "This is how you should go about traveling to Washington. Here, use this map." Like, why can't Ellie do that herself? She traveled across the United States, for fuck's sake. She really doesn't know how to use a map? If anything, Ellie should be teaching her. And then Dina just thinks of everything from clothes, camping supplies, ammo, and rations, weather. Didn't Joel teach her these things? It kind of just feels like an excuse to bring Dina along. I don't like the way they made Ellie. Like, yeah, she's overzealous at times and aggro, but that doesn't mean she's stupid. Before I lose my mind, I should point out some things I did like about the show that I didn't already mention earlier in the video, because it did do some good things. The moment with Joel and Ellie hanging out at the Space Museum for her birthday was so sweet, man. I would legit watch these two watch paint dry on a wall. Anything that involves them doing stuff together is always a treat. I really appreciated that all of the flashbacks were contained to one episode instead of being sprinkled throughout the season. As someone who's been ruined by Naruto flashbacks, I love that they did this because it really easily could have become annoying. Also, I guess it was kind of cool watching Ellie slowly turn into Joel, with the contrast of a kind, gentle side with her learning to play guitar, and then the unwavering, rage-induced murder side with her beating Nora to death and killing 2 others. All that, and she goes on to question her own actions, which sows the seeds for her character in season 3. I will say though, that I kind of wish they went a little further with this, cause she does come off as happy-go-lucky with the jokes and quips throughout the season, which contradicts the murder rampage path she is journeying down, but at least it's trying. But like I said in the beginning, for every one good thing this show does, there are 2 bad things that really just bog it down for me. Overall, throughout the show, I did feel some emotions, some positive, more so negative, and I thought the show was okay at best. I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10.